Mr. Mike.
So, one of the biggest changes I've seen in the last 5 years is, especially dealing with juveniles, high school age, down to middle school, a little bit, elementary school, but not as much so, is our online extortion of these juveniles. They get involved in chats, either on Instagram, Snapchat, you name it, whatever social media platform that they're using. They believe they're talking to an individual who reels them in, and there might be some photographs that are sent that would be inappropriate. That person on the other side now has all their friends list and their family, and they threaten they will send these photographs to their friends and family if they don't send them money. I have seen personally work cases where kids have, and when I mean kids, I'm talking anyone from, younger all the way up to high school, teenagers.
How young?
9.
Yeah, 9, probably 9 is probably the youngest I've seen it. They'll have access to their parents' bank accounts. We all have, parents will link their cards to their kids' phones for Apple Pay and whatever they need it for. That money now, they're freaking out. What am I gonna do? I can't have these photos, I can't have my parents. They're sending money to these groups. Sometimes these groups still send the photos to their friends. That causes significant psychological damage to these kids, to the point where some kids have taken their own lives because they feel like this is the end. They're not gonna be able to live having these photos out there. So that is something I've seen in the last 5 years, a huge spike in this online extortion stuff. And it's dangerous and scary.
Yeah, and we've also seen where someone takes a photo of a kid, makes it look like they're doing something embarrassing, and says, I'm gonna send this to your friends, and they'll think that you're actually doing this embarrassing thing, unless you send me photos of you, more photos of you. And
Think of like the most embarrassing.
Yeah,
right,
Embarrassing is a word.
yeah.
It's a word. Loosely.
And yeah, it's the same spiral into just feelings of hopelessness, like they're trapped, like they can't get out. It's really, really important for parents to be involved and have conversations that, you can bring anything to me. So that if they get into a situation like that, they feel like there's a way out. And just be, involved in online activity as well. So that if something inappropriate gets sent to your kid, you're right there to intercept, to report, and use that as a teaching moment if that happens.
So we've seen all kinds of things having to do with the internet and apps. I think it's important to note that it's not only Snapchat and Discord and apps like that are scary. We get a lot of scary things through Instagram as well, which is, I think, supposed to be one of the less scary social media apps. We had a client who was a teenager himself who started at age 13, I think. He would find girls on social media and he'd say they'd get to know each other through direct messaging, say send me a picture, and then that would escalate. And so if you don't send me a picture, I'm going to put this on the internet. From our perspective, this kid is also a teenager, and if he didn't have access to these apps, then he never tried to meet up with anybody. He never did anything inappropriate in person. So if he didn't have all that access to these apps, then this would have probably not happened, and he could have, whatever the issue was in his mind. And a lot of it is mental health related on both sides, I think. I think you would even admit that, right? Would come out in a different way so that he could have gotten help that didn't harm other people. I just spoke to somebody this week whose daughter had a picture of 2 other teenagers who were doing embarrassing things together. And she went on Instagram Live with 12 or 14 other kids. These are like 14, 15-year-olds. And showed that picture. And now she's facing criminal charges. So this is when I think back
Not
to...
in Fairfax.
Not in Fairfax. No, I'm not talking about any Fairfax cases. She had, I think back to when I was in high school and there's gossip in the hallways, right? But nothing is online, and now it's all online, and the internet does not forget. I think a lot of the kids, from what I'm hearing from our younger clients, they're communicating only through Snapchat or almost exclusively through Snapchat. It's not text messaging anymore. Snapchat doesn't actually delete your data. Everybody thinks it does, but you can get it. It's maybe not easy to get it, but I can let Meredith and Officer Mike speak to that. But once it's on the internet, it's on the internet, and I think that's something that has to be reinforced over and over and over with kids probably starting at age 9. But it's not only embarrassing things, it's also drugs and other illegal activity. Bullying, kids can get scammed. I had a ugly protective order case among 14-year-olds, and I was representing the child who was accused of, honestly, professing his love to another girl. And he was scammed into sending codes to his social media to somebody who ended up, the VPN came back, it was like Nigeria or something. But that person who got his code was able to log into his Snapchat and then reached out to the girl that he wasn't allowed to have contact with, and then he's charged with a criminal offense. So it's easy to get tricked, especially if you're lonely and feeling down and you're going through a lot of the mental health, esteem issues that a lot of teenagers have.
Yeah.
Related question. I think you'll probably talk about this. We talked about specific takeaways from tonight. What specific apps are you seeing in your roles a lot?
So we're seeing a lot of Instagram, Snapchat, but really it's anything that has any type of functionality to be able to communicate with another person. So Discord servers,
Google Drive.
Google Drive, Roblox, that was my next one. Yes, we've had several cases of kids being harmed by people that they met on Roblox.
I thought Roblox was safe.
Oh, Roblox is not safe. No.
Like saying Fortnite is safe.
Yeah.
Usually they have a chat window, anything that pops up on any game, Madden, you put Madden online, if you can communicate with another individual on online play, you're at risk.
Yeah,
No matter
that's
what
true.
you're doing.
And so, whenever you get to the point where your kids are, using these apps where they can communicate with other people, again, it's so important that you keep an eye on those things, because kids are not good at estimating risk, just like in general, right? They're even worse about estimating risk online, where you don't see the person that you're talking to, you're not hearing the tone of voice, those kinds of things. And so they, end up in really vulnerable places. I will say I have a story of something where parent surveillance helped out a ton. There was a young man, he was 14 years old. He received some inappropriate content on Snapchat. He brushed it off. He didn't engage with it, didn't think it was any big deal, just some weirdo on the internet. And so he personally was not really affected by it. But his parents saw the inappropriate content. They reported it to the police. They found someone who had been hurting children for over 20 years. That man is in jail and will spend at least 10 years in prison, hopefully the rest of his life.
And that's around here. That's local.
That's local, that's in Fairfax County. So, even if your kid, is not the one that's being harmed, you can still play a huge role in helping out, just keep the online community safe in general.
Yeah, and just kind of piggyback on that. If your kids do have, or any of us here have, the social media apps, make sure you go through and turn the location data off.
Yeah.
Snapchat, if you can go on a Snapchat, and if your location's that on, you can find where that person is up to their being in their bedroom in their house. You can zoom in.
So
And
anyone on Snap, if you're friends on Snapchat, you can
if
see
you're
where.
friends on Snapchat and their location is shared on Snapchat, you can see where that
So
person
if
is.
you end up being, your kid ends up being friends on Snapchat with someone that isn't actually who they say they are, they have access to your house.
Your location. We talked about Instagram and messaging. You know, Instagram is also a huge issue now. More teenagers are using Instagram and other apps other than Facebook. You know, Facebook is more for our age. It's for our age. They're not using Facebook.
You guys know what Facebook is?
They're not using Facebook.
You read about it in the library.
However, those apps, like on Instagram, they're going to allow their communication. Drugs, you mentioned about drugs.
Yeah.
When I worked robberies, we had huge problems with people meeting up through Instagram. They're either they're selling drugs, they're selling something, and then they either get robbed. And all the shootings I've worked is where people were buying drugs, or teenagers in this county, buying drugs on Instagram, and they ended up getting shot and robbed. So,
I have a question for you guys. Hold on.
I was just gonna ask about, like, there's like a kids messenger or something, my kids are not using it, but is that something that's a concern, or do you not see it?
I mean, we see so many different, there's new apps all the time. And, you know, kids always wanna try like new things too. So just, again, being involved is super important. Know what the apps are on the phone. Know who they're talking to on the phone. And, you know, don't rely on your kids, say, oh, it's no big deal, right? Like, look it up, see what it does, see what it's about, how it works. Yeah.
And there was some material that was passed out that there are some resources and tools out there to try to help monitor your kids' apps. None of them are free. None of them are free, but that will help. And you know, it also takes your kids' aspect. If you download one of these, like for Bart, you could all fill it all out, but your kid also has to put their stuff in it as well, like the number to be able to share. So there will be some type of, you just can't download the app and say, okay, I'm gonna monitor my kid's stuff. They're gonna have to be, your kid also agreeing to it as well. But there are tools out there that at least help try to combat some of this.
I was saying in general, it sounds like that oversight, parental oversight, very important. And it's harder, the more Snapchatty the app is, the more challenging it is to have parental oversight. Kids Messenger app, perhaps a little bit more easier for the parent to have oversight of those apps like that. If they're messaging like cousins or local friends or something like that, it can be more in a controlled environment.
And the amount of information that goes through these kids' messaging, if they have Snapchat, there was recently, this made the media, we probably all heard, there was a stabbing at West Potomac High School in Fairfax County. That stabbing was caught on video. The kids recorded it. That video, before I was on that case, before I even saw it, kids in Prince William County were like, hey, you know, that video went from Fairfax County to Western Prince William County in a matter of 20 minutes. And everyone knew about it. So just consider that as well. I mean, the amount of information and speed this stuff goes in, it's pretty scary.
All right, I'm gonna switch to advice. Okay, so I feel like we're in an episode like Scared Straight.
Yeah.
All right, so what are some of the most common mistakes that kids and or parents make that end up getting them or their families in trouble with, and they end up getting in front of you guys?
Yeah. So as part of that, you know, parent involvement, you know, keeping devices in sort of public areas within the home. So, you know, not letting them have them in their rooms at night, you know, have them charged in the family room, you know, and, you know, go through messages every once in a while. Again, this is not about not trusting your child. This is about not trusting everybody else on the internet, right? I wear a seatbelt, not because I'm a bad driver. I think I'm a pretty good driver, but I wear a seatbelt because I don't trust other people on the road. those are sort of the big things that I've seen.
Again, oversight, like she said, if your kids, let's say they don't even have a cell phone, but they're playing a video game, and on the video game, they are chatting with other people on the video game, we have a lot of instances, I would say, of, they're called swatting calls in Fairfax, where we'll get a call to an address, and it says there's a shooting at the address, and so all the police come, and then the residents are getting taken out at gunpoint, and the root of it was, nothing happened there, but their kid was playing a video game, made someone mad, whoever, and was able to figure out who they are, call 911 at Fairfax County and report this crime, alleged crime. So, and then a lot of this happens through video games.
And is it for the location search this, or like how do they figure it out?
Honestly, I don't know that answer. I don't know that answer. They do, and they're good at it.
Yeah, and there's, a little bit of sort of operational security on the kids' end too, like, don't share your full name, don't tell them where you live. I think like even Fairfax, don't share that with people online. Those kinds of things, like those are private in-person type conversations. That's not stuff to be shared online.
And that, I was just gonna add, that's something, part of our digital citizenship, we start even in kindergarten, is talking about that privacy, right? And that's something like, again, to work as a team, but we tell kids like, you never give anyone your name. Even here, your username, we talk about your password, you don't tell anyone your password, because that's your private information, you keep that secure. So we do that starting, kindergarten, first grade, to make sure that, they learn that. And I'll say, we've had instances where the kids here share their passwords and so-and-so gets on, but again, that's a teachable moment. We're in elementary school, and that's kind of the big thing. I have that conversation like, hey, we did this now, but I'm happy you did it now here, so now you can learn from that, so you don't make that mistake when you're older with more.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Liza.
I think that everything about oversight is correct. We often tell our clients, adult and kid clients, that they can't be on social media, even if it's not ordered by the court. Like, take your child's cell phone from them, don't let them have it. And the kids are like panicking in their conference room, and they're like shaking, like what am I gonna do without my phone? And even the parents will often say, well, how am I gonna communicate with my kid? They need their phone, they need it for their homework. They don't need their cell phone for their homework. They might need a laptop, but they don't need their cell phone. They're going to be okay if they don't have social media. Will probably be better if they don't have social media. They just don't know it. So limiting the amount of time on their phones, it's all going to be a fight. I think Dale and I were talking about that.
It's going to be a battle. Like, once you give your kid a phone, some of you guys have children with phones. There's going to be a battle. Before you give your kid a phone, there's a battle about giving your kid a phone. You just have to choose your battle, right? So there's going to be a battle. Your kid wants a phone. It's like they want ice cream, they want a cookie, they want this thing that is like the access to the entire world. But what they don't realize is it gives the world access to them.